All right, by now, you've probably seen all the headlines in the news. 83-year-old actor Bill Cosby, who was convicted in 2018 of sexual assault, is now out of prison. He served nearly 3 years of a 3 to 10-year prison sentence. But recently, the Pennsylvania's highest court overturned his conviction, saying that the comedian's due process rights were violated. The court found that there was a process violation because Cosby's lawyers had made an agreement with a previous state prosecutor that he would not be charged in the case. Now, Bill Cosby has had legal trouble for quite some time. According to unsealed court documents from 2005 that were obtained by the Associated Press, he admitted to giving one woman quaaludes in order to have sexual relations with her. Well, there's a lot to get to here. Let's bring in Bill Cosby's spokesman, Andrew Wyatt. Andrew, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me, Sean, and thanks to your host as well, your co-host.
You bet. So, Andrew, I know you guys have been talking about the coverage of Bill Cosby. If you watched the show before, even if you haven't, I have a ton of issues with corporate media, how they cover stories, what they cover, what they don't, how they source stuff. But I want to understand your angle here first, because Mr. Cosby was convicted by a court of law and let off on a technicality. So you've been very clear that you think the media has covered this case unfairly. Explain how.
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on your show. Watch your show, and I enjoy people who put out the facts and truth. However, the Constitution is not a technicality. The Constitution has never been a technicality. The Constitution is like the God, law, statute, and commandments. It wasn't given to us as a suggestion. It was given to us to live by so that we're protected and we have equal rights. Mr. Cosby's Fifth Amendment rights were violated. This is a man who waived his Fifth Amendment rights, sat for a deposition because the prosecutor at the time, Bruce Castor, the former DA, said that Andrea Kunston gave inconsistent statements to 5 different law enforcement agencies, so he foreclosed on any form of convictions against Mr. Cosby. He foreclosed on it, sent him to civil court, where he settled out of court for $3.38 million, waived his Fifth Amendment rights, sat for a deposition that you just showed an excerpt from, and that's what mainstream media gave the public excerpts of the deposition, not the full structure of the deposition. If you read before that excerpt, they asked Mr. Cosby, did you give women quaaludes without their permission, drugs for sex? Did you drug them? He said, no, I had those in his 70s, which he was in his 30s at the time, because that was the party drug, the drug that young people liked. And they were called disco biscuits. And the woman, they deposed her, who he talked about, Teresa Sarganese, and she said, I waited till he got through performing. I went to him and said, do you have any quaaludes? He said, yes, gave me a couple, and we went and had sex. So those are the facts. Mainstream media are the insurrectionists that they want to say raided the Capitol. It's mainstream media. Well, I call them media insurrectionists.
Well, I don't want to get into Bill Cosby's sex life, but in an interview with NBC, Cosby's accusers reacted to his release. So let's take a listen.
In a word, how did you feel when you heard the news?
Shocked. Stunned. Sickened.
Stunned.
Distraught. Nauseated.
Disgusted.
Confused.
The anger just kept growing and growing.
Victoria, who are you most angry at?
I'm angry at the legal system. We put our necks on the line, and then the legal system yanked the rug out from under us.
Andrew, what is your response to these women?
Distractors. One word, distractors. If you look at the lady who is in the very top right-hand corner, Catherine McKee, I sent your news organization, your producer, she accused Mr. Cosby of raping her in Detroit in 1974. She was the girlfriend of Sammy Davis Jr. However, she sends Mr. Cosby a letter on September 22nd, 1999. Your producer has the letter where she talks about how much she loves him and he's the greatest person in the world. And then she ends the letter and said, give my regards to Camille Cosby. Doesn't add up. Doesn't sound like a person who's been raped by Bill Cosby, raped and drugged.
But Andrew, that's a lot of women accusing Bill Cosby.
But just because the sheer volume of somebody that's saying something doesn't mean it's true. What America has said is that women don't lie, but it's the media's job also. Just before you bring a guest on, let's just say if it was somebody saying that, hey, I'm Bill Cosby's publicist, and you see me on television with Bill Cosby saying it, but you're going to vet the person. We're saying vet the women. They're telling us, no, we cannot vet the women because that's re-victimizing or victim shaming. No, do the research, vet the women, listen to their accounts, and you will get a different story. Andrea Custon gave 5 different statements to 5 different law enforcement agencies, 2 agencies in Toronto, Canada. And that's why Bruce Castor, he said she was making, it wasn't true. She was making it up.
So Andrew, I get what you're, look, I've been accused of things that are completely false, right? I get that. I'm 100% on board with understanding where you're coming from, right? But you talked about the Constitution a moment ago, right? Mr. Cosby went through the process. They let him off on a technicality because of the deal, not because somehow they came back and said, wow, we've now found out that these women lied or that the evidence was tainted or that, you know, it wasn't his DNA at the scene. It wasn't that somehow the evidence was wrong or the accusers have been proven falsely. It was there was a technicality in the legal system.
Can't be a technicality in the legal system when he had immunity. He should have never been charged. He should have never been charged at all. He was given immunity. It goes back to the Constitution because there's an important tool in the Constitution, an important element, which is the Fifth Amendment. He waived his Fifth Amendment right, not to his detriment. The Fifth Amendment is in the Constitution to protect the powerless, whether rich or poor, from the powerful, which are the gatekeepers of the judicial system. What Kevin Steele and this judge did, they knew he had immunity. And that's why it's not a technicality. If you read the opinions of the justices, look, this became the biggest win in the history of jurisprudence. Just yesterday in Pennsylvania, they convened a special legislative session where they restructured the one's right when they make a deal, a non-prosecutorial deal, saying that you have to have it in writing, and if the district attorney gives you a deal, they cannot go up on their deal, go back on their deal.
Andrew, I appreciate you coming on. It's good that people hear your side of this and explain it through that standpoint. So thank you for coming on and explaining your side.
And Sean, thank you. And just remember, corruption, in order to survive, needs collaboration and cooperation. And we didn't cooperate, and Bill Cosby is a free man, and he will be getting on to his life. I love your show. Keep doing the great work and putting out the truth and the facts, if they even allow you to put it out. Thank you so much, and y'all have a great day.
All right, you're welcome. All right, joining us now is our legal panel with reaction to what you just heard, constitutional law and civil rights attorney Ameer Benno and attorney Jonna Spilbor. Thank you both for joining us. Ameer, I want to start with you. Andrew brought up a point that says, you know, when Mercy asked him, well, there's a ton of women. Hey, volume doesn't matter. I'm sort of perplexed here, right? The court did convict him. He wasn't let off because the evidence was tainted. He was let off because of this due process technicality. What's your reaction to what he said?
So the reaction is this, Sean, which is this is the correct decision on the law, but a terrible outcome. And a terrible outcome because it results from plain prosecutorial incompetence. But he's correct in the sense that the Fifth Amendment is never a technicality. I get what you're saying, that the evidence wasn't overturned, the credibility of the complainants wasn't overturned. There was a multitude of women who accused him credibly of predations. But the fact of the matter is he was made a promise by an arm of the state that there would be no prosecution. He relied on that to his detriment. He testified in the civil case, and then they used that testimony to bring a criminal prosecution against him. That violates the basic tenets of the Fifth Amendment, and the Constitution, again, is never a technicality.
Well, Jonna, how typical is it for a conviction like Cosby's to be overturned like this? And also, is it possible for wealthy people like Cosby to, quote, buy their way out of this?
So to answer your first question, it is actually very rare. But if I can just add to what your other esteemed guest said, I'm not here to criticize Cosby, nor am I here to criticize the accusers. I'm here to praise the process. And even though getting convictions overturned like this happens probably about 2% of the time, it was the right thing to do in this case. And if we take Cosby completely out of the equation for a moment, by protecting the process, by protecting due process and fundamental fairness for him, we are preserving it for all of us. There's no such thing as due process light. So whether you're accused of jaywalking or somebody else is accused of murder, we're all entitled to the exact same rights to both. So on that end, that's what I say about that. In terms of Bill Cosby's wealth, I mean, look, he was able to hire some good lawyers. And keep in mind, he had 2 trials, one with a hung jury, one he was convicted with his high-powered lawyer. So that's the system as the system is. And then ultimately, this was reversed on appeal. I don't think money played into this as much as we like to think it did.
So we don't have a ton of time. I want you both to answer this. Try to keep your answers to 30 seconds if you can. I know that's difficult, and I apologize for this. But you both keep talking about the failure of the legal system. I, as a non-legal person, look at this and say, why did his lawyer let him get this deal made in the first place? And second, if you're the prosecutor, you knew that that deal wasn't going to hold. Shouldn't you have known? Ameer, I'll start with you. I apologize. Try to keep it tight.
Yeah, well, as far as a defense attorney, this worked to favor their client. So, of course, they liked this deal because he wasn't getting criminally prosecuted. There was incompetence by the prosecutor. And I think we need to look into what Bruce Castor's motives were. He was originally the prosecutor in 2005. He let this case go. In 2015, when they started to re-prosecute Bill Cosby, and that's when Bruce Castor came to light saying, hey, I made this agreement, an agreement that his second in command didn't know about, that the complaining witness didn't know about. He was actually running, Bruce Castor was, for that DA position again. I'm not suggesting anything improper, but I think we need to look into his what was going on in his minds, because there at least is the color of some improper motive here on his part.
Jonna, real quick, who's more incompetent, the prosecutor or the defense attorney?
I don't like the word incompetent, but I think the prosecutor was most wrong, because this deal never should have happened. It's not a prosecutor's job to broker civil settlements. And look, the prosecutor came right out and didn't prosecute Bill Cosby because he didn't have good enough evidence. He should have stayed in his lane, but once he made the deal, he had to honor it. So I'll point my finger more strongly on him.
Guys, I can't tell you how much I appreciate this. With such a great conversation and such insight into the law. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.